Hey, it's Maria from goalietrainingpro.com. I'm an exercise physiologist that designs off-ice training programs for hockey goalies so that you guys can win more games with fewer injuries on the ice. Unfortunately, today we're going to talk about injury, which is an ACL tear or strain. Now, the difference is a strain is just the ACL isn't completely torn. And so it still has some fibers connecting, and you don't have to have reconstructive surgery. If it's a complete tear, you're typically going to have reconstructive surgery if you're still going to compete in sport at a high level, because most times the knee is going to feel very unstable if it's completely torn and you're trying to play hockey, especially as a goalie. So what we're going to go through today are some of the early stage or medium stage rehab exercises for if you've strained. Even if you've had ACL reconstruction, you can still do these, but you need to do it with the guidance of your physiotherapist, because what happens when you have your ACL reconstructed is they'll take a graft from somewhere else, your hamstring, your patellar tendon, and they'll sew it in where your ACL was. So it's a healthy piece of tissue when it goes in, but then it's going in somewhere that it doesn't have a good blood supply. And so it actually gets weaker at first, and then over time it gets blood vessels infiltrated a bit, and it gets healthier. So you don't want to just start doing things like, usually around sort of 3 months, 4 months is when it's at its weakest, but people are actually starting to feel good because the swelling's out and it doesn't hurt, and they think like, it feels really good, I'm going to try running, and the graft is at its weakest and they will re-tear it. So make sure you're going with the guidance of your physiotherapist before you try any of these if you've had ACL reconstruction surgery. But otherwise, if it's just a strain, you're pain-free, you can walk, do all that stuff without trouble, then you might want to try some of these. But again, if it's painful, don't do it. Make sure you're getting checked and followed by a physiotherapist. So in today's episode, we're talking about the hamstrings. So the hamstrings are actually going to become your new best friend if you've strained your ACL or sprained your ACL, because I might have said strained in the intro, which I should not have. You sprain your ACL, because you strain a muscle, you sprain a ligament. So if I did, I apologize to everybody anywhere who took offense. You sprain your ACL. On we go. So your hamstrings are going to be important because they are a dynamic stabilizer of your tibia. So basically, if you're running along and you slam on the brakes to decelerate, your quadriceps are going to contract hard because that's what stops you. Your quadriceps, actually, it's kind of funny, but they go around the corner and they attach right here. I got a little bump there because I had Osgood-Schlatter's as a kid, but they attach right on that bump. So when they contract hard with my knee bent, what actually happens is there's a force pulling my tibia forward underneath my femur, and that's how your ACL gets torn. Your quads contract hard, your hamstrings, not necessarily they aren't strong enough, but they just aren't quite smart enough to restrain that, so you get a little, and there goes your ACL. That's how that's why people are like, I just went to change direction and pop, my knee went. That's so weird, nothing happened. Well, yes and no. Now, a lot of times more for goalies, that mechanism does not happen very often. More often it's somebody falls on your knee and takes you into a position that it's really not supposed to be in. So, but either way, your hamstrings, you're going to want to get that dynamic stabilizer working nicely for you. So the first one we're going to do is a little hamstring curl on the ball. Put your hands on the ground to give you a little bit of balance and stability. There are two ways we can do it. This is the basic version where my hips stay still and I just bring my heels in and out. There really is not much of an overall length change in the hamstrings. It's a little easier, but it gets you the movement. Then the little bit more advanced version, I'm going to now keep this in a straight line. So as I curl in, my hips go up, and here my hamstrings are actually shortening. And that's the advanced version. So that's one of the ways that we're going to target your hamstrings after you've had an ACL sprain. So this is another way that we can target our hamstrings, also a great way to work our glutes. So that whole, we call posterior chain, which actually is even our back extensors, our glutes, our hamstrings, our calves. We want to get them all working together. I love this one because it also requires balance. So you know how I'm a little bit of a fan of your stabilization. So I'm going to stand on one foot, holding a dumbbell in each hand. I'm keeping my hips level, so I'm not opening my hips as I come forward. They're staying level. The weights stay nice and close to my supporting leg, and by that I mean I don't put the weights way out here because that's hard on my back. So I keep the weights close to my leg because I want to put that load through my hip and through my hamstring. So as I get forward, I want to think about actually using my hamstring and my glutes to pull me back up and over my hips. That's a single leg, stiff-legged deadlift. So this is a great exercise. Actually, we use it all the time. It's not really a rehab exercise, but a great way to get your glutes working and your hamstrings working. You can load it up nicely, and it's not really going to put a lot of stress through your knee either if you've sprained your ACL. So it's a hip drive. Now I have a little pad attached to this bar. Some people just wrap a towel around because it can sometimes dig into your hips a little bit. So we're going to bring that right up over our hip bones. You check that your feet are pointing straight ahead and kind of equidistant or centered on your body. So you don't want one out here and one back here. About hip width stance. I'm going to hold the bar with my hands, and then I'm going to stay nice and strong in my torso. So I'm lined up so that the bottom of my shoulder blades is resting on this step, and then I'm just going to lift up. As I lift up, my head goes up. So I'm looking in the mirror. Now I'm looking at the ceiling because I'm trying to get everything moving together. At the top, I'm pausing, I'm squeezing my glutes. I can feel my hamstrings working as well. I don't really feel it on my back at all, nor should you. It's just that hip drive. So this is a barbell hip drive.